Welcome back to Deviatus. This week I'm going to be having a follow-up discussion with Samantha Lang from episode 29. If you remember, she had some terrifying experiences as a child after she and her sister played with her parents' Ouija board. Samantha had quite a few more experiences to share that we didn't have the time to touch on previously, from paranormal activity in her home to communication from deceased loved ones, poltergeist activity, and lucid dreams. But before we get to my follow-up conversation with Samantha, I have a couple of shout-outs to make. Sentinel Eye commented on YouTube and says, "Great show, man. Been a listener for a while. Glad I found you on YouTube." Thank you so much, Sentinel Eye, for listening. I guess I really haven't done a great job advertising that Deviatus is available on YouTube, but now's as good a time as ever to let you know. So anyone who likes YouTube, I do have a YouTube channel where the entire archive of the Deviatus podcast is accessible to you there. I also received another 5-star iTunes review since the last episode. This one comes from user Bears vs. Gorillas, who says, "Every episode, Deviatus brings on great guests and guides us down the rabbit hole in the best way." It's a huge compliment, Bears vs. Gorillas, and really that's one of my main goals in producing this show. Thank you so much for listening and reviewing on iTunes. I have one last shout out to Jessie Bev, who initially reached out from Instagram, but decided to email me with some additional thoughts. She listened to the episode with John Paul Capice and says, "I really enjoy your approach to the unexplained when interviewing your guests. Your approach is very open-minded, yet grounded in as many facts and experiences as you can find, which I can appreciate." She also gave me an excellent guest suggestion for a priest who claims the Vatican wants people to know about exorcism and possession, and that the Pope has decreed that every diocese have a trained exorcist at the ready at all times across the world. I have been able to confirm the name and location of this priest, Jessica, and I've reached out to him via the email address you provided. Sometimes the podcast hosting game ebbs and flows with success and rejection when it comes to these interview requests, but I'll keep you posted if I hear anything back from him. If you too have feedback you'd like to share, or if you'd like to suggest a guest, or if you have a story of your own, feel free to shoot me an email at deviatuspod@gmail.com. Now let's get to my follow-up conversation with Samantha Lang. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm feeling, doing okay.
No craziness since the last time we spoke?
Only the usual, my theory that the person who controls my matrix, the computer programmer, is really lazy. Mm-hmm. So all those coincidences, okay. that happens all the time, though. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you have, I know you got a list of things to discuss, but if you wanna tell us about that too, that'd be great. But I really, I have no script for tonight, no questions. This is just kind of an informal chat and follow up since the last time we spoke. And I should let you know that, I was looking through my episode stats. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge show yet, but your episode was, or still is, I think, the highest downloaded episode.
Oh, wow.
So we recorded that, or I published it, on May 28th. And there's almost 2,500 downloads of just that episode alone.
Oh, wow. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and, it's funny because when I first started this, I'm still, I'm about to post episode 33 on Monday. So I'm still not like, I wouldn't call myself experienced at this yet. But, I think those are pretty decent numbers for a show that's only 33 episodes in. And I think I had some misconceptions coming out with this podcast that, people like on TV, television personalities, or, more big name researchers would be the big, traffic grabbers. But, I kind of do all this just for fun.
Yeah.
So while I look at those things, it's not something that really drives me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I think that just goes to show that, stories like yours, and I think the other two big ones were Craig Owens with the Haunted by History book, and then Denise Pridemore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that. I remember that one.
yeah, she
Um,
has creepy stuff too. So, I think the
yeah,
personal stories really get people.
yeah. It's funny because I wouldn't have thought that either. I would think that yeah, the big researchers and the big stories would be what everybody's interested in. But I know maybe there's some connection thing. Like I
Hmm.
said to you before, don't have any books, don't have any websites. I just have all these weird experiences that I've had happen to me and to my family. Because every time something happens, and I've got somebody with me, or
Yeah.
it's really good because it's like, oh, see, it's one of those weird coincidences happening again. And somebody's actually with me to go, oh yeah, we were just talking about that, or we had just read that, or and then all of a
Hmm.
sudden this really, and usually they're really kind of out there things too. The things you think, well, that's not really a topic that is a very popular topic that would just come up or something like that. It's always these really, yeah, weird kind of things
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that come up. That's why, I always thought, well, maybe whoever's just controlling my matrix, is lazy, and they go, oh yeah, that topic, and then boom, I'll just connect it to this same topic, different person.
Right. Right.
I don't know. That's just my fun theory. I don't know if that's what it is at all, but yeah. But I've been doing a bit of research since I last talked to you
Uh huh.
about different things, and because you know how I was really interested in how when I was a child and we had these things happen to us, we kind of got put in this bubble,
Hmm.
sound bubble kind of thing. And then when I was doing, reading some stuff online and looking at stuff, I came across the whole concept of a lot of times when the high strangeness happens, there's funny noises or lack of noises.
Hmm.
Like when Bigfoot is a classic one, or Dogman, and everything goes quiet,
Hmm.
and people say they can't hear things. So I'm wondering if it's some kind of effect that's related to that.
Well, and that's where people come across and say, they're interdimensional beings, and
Yeah,
it's just not
yeah,
not the flesh and blood kind of stuff that you tend to think about. But
yeah.
yeah, I was really
Oh,
interested. Not to cut you off here,
no, no, that's fine.
but you'd emailed me and said that you were researching about the myth and deities and
Yes.
stuff like that. So I was hoping to kind of tackle that line of
Okay.
conversation. But by all means, this, like I said, it's not scripted. So feel free to tell me whatever you like.
Well, yeah, the myth I just came across kind of by accident because I've been researching. I'm, doing fine arts at university, so I like to look at spaces and how they can be reimagined and installation. And I was reading, I really like textile art too. So I would borrow this book from the university library, and it was all about myth. It was called When They Severed Something Man from Sky or something like that. And unfortunately, I've had to take it back to the library because it was due, so I haven't got it with me now. But yeah, they were talking about myth and how the spoken word was the big thing before we began to write. So in pre-literate societies,
Hmm.
passing down important information was encoded in myth.
Huh.
And one part, yeah, which totally makes sense. A lot of myths are related to natural phenomena that have happened, like uh, volcanoes is a good example. A lot of the basic elements of the myth can be related to the natural activity that occurs when a huge volcano blows its top. And yes, they'd gone through all this in the book, and then they hit this really interesting chapter about word, the spoken word, and the power of the spoken word, and how there's this divine utterance that you hear mentioned over and over again, like with God bringing the world into creation when he said, "Let there be light," and he named light, and there was light, And even going back further to, in the beginning there was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and how this all unfolds. And they had the example of the ancient Egyptians and how the God there brought everything into creation by uttering words. So we seem to have this really ancient link between naming things and making them actually have form or create some being from that, which is really, when you think about it, the Philip experiments, I think they're called, when they got around, basically that's what they were doing, weren't they? They were talking, they were giving this being a whole history, a name, and, they call up whatever it was, whether it wasn't Philip, obviously, because this person didn't exist. But, so it makes you wonder, to tie that into how I do not like to speak the name that it was given to us on the board. I had said to my partner, I've never told you that name. And my partner said, no, you never have. And I said, yeah, and I probably never will. I don't like to speak it. But it just made me think about all these connections and, the power of the actually uttering the name of something. Now, I think there's two schools of thought, isn't there, that uttering the name can give you power over something or whatever being. And then there's the other thought that, no, the name actually gives them form and you can't control that once you've uttered it, kind of thing. So, yeah, I suppose I'll just say stay safely in the middle and not say it.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, and I think I shot you an email about this, but I just had probably a 2-hour conversation with John Paul Capice. And he's actually been on a couple episodes of Into the Fray, and he's more of a theologian, and he wouldn't call himself a professional one yet until he gets his doctorate, I don't think. But he obviously is studying that kind of thing. And I told him the name. And what I wanted to do, first of all, was get your permission. It's part of the recording. I think I'm going to publish our conversation as a podcast episode because it was just fascinating. But I didn't know if you wanted that name to be out there. It is on my show notes from your previous episode in writing, but it hasn't been spoken. So I just want to be, sensitive to how you feel about that as well.
That I don't know. I'm at this moment in time, I suppose I have to be brave. At one point I wondered, is this an anagram? That had crossed my mind too. I really don't know. I just know that it was a really unusual name. To say you were from Mars, which is what it said. And to two little girls, it just was weird. It was the whole, that's when everything kind of shifted, like I told you before. It was a really weird session on that Ouija board. It was very weird. I know it sounds silly. Here I am, 49 years old, wondering whether this phantom from my childhood still has any power, So, but I think it would be okay. I'm not going to say it.
Okay. Well, and I won't say it while chatting with you, but again, let me know. The last thing I want to do is, offend anybody or, cause any issues for you or undue stress or anything like that. So,
I think I've matured a lot. Obviously I was only a little kid then, but there's been a lot of strange incidents that have happened, and I've managed to be able to control those situations. It's really strange. I don't want to know, but sometimes I do wonder because I don't get frightened like I used to do. You know, I don't know whether that's just getting a bit older, and you know, I don't know.
Well, I will say that, you know, he was kind of consulting some reference books that he had when I was talking to him, and he did not find a specific reference to that perfect spelling.
Yeah.
But there were a couple that were similar, and what he was saying is that, you know, anytime you get something through a Ouija board or something like that, then it doesn't always have to be the exact spelling, but it can more like be close or sound like phonetically, you know, what you're saying when you pronounce it out loud.
Right.
So he was going to do some research and get back to me, and of course he invited you to connect with him through his Facebook page, and I think he wanted to have a chat with you if you're willing.
Yeah.
Because he's writing a whole book on you know, demonology and kind of you know, doing a little research. He was interested in my experience with the you know, whatever I saw in Arizona. So we touched base. We had a conversation about a few of my experiences that haven't come out before, but interesting guy, super interesting conversation, and I think you would get along well with him. I mean, he's easy to talk to about this stuff. You know, it's tough sometimes because people don't tend to believe you, but you know, he's had his own experience too. So
yeah, it's kind of that irony thing of I honestly don't tell hardly anybody about that, especially that incident. But here I am.
Well, you've got at least 2,500 people who've heard it now. Have any of your family or friends listened to your episode?
My partner did,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, my parents are kind of older now, and they're not really into. I don't even know if they know what a podcast was, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of kept it. Just yeah. So basically, one person that I know
Okay.
has listened to that. So yeah, it's still that thing of that whenever you start to go into those paranormal or whatever it is, that realm, that people start giving you the side eye, I have no idea why there's such a I don't know what it is that makes well, maybe it is that denial thing. If it's best to deny when you can't grasp the whole concept. And I think the first and easiest thing to do is just to go, well, you dreamed it. And somehow I know that you're saying that to make yourself feel better, not me, because I know. But, yeah, so there you go.
Well, you just got to start bringing it up at happy hour.
Happy Yeah. I mean, because I know when you did email me about the whole demonology aspect of it, my first reaction is like, oh yeah, all right, yeah. But then I kind of thought, well, a parasitic entity, demon, maybe it's this whole, like, it is the same thing, but we just have different names for it.
Right.
And maybe those different names can empower it in different ways to act in different ways, kind of like your expectations. I mean, there's always still the real interesting theory that, and I think it's probably one of the first theories that, anything poltergeist kind of nature is coming from inside you. The PK kind of aspect.
Right.
Of poltergeist and stuff like that. But when this happened to us, we were still very small, not approaching, because the classic thing is, you approach puberty and suddenly become this great ball of power that, can make things happen. But we were small, 7, 8, nowhere near that.
Right.
So, and it didn't just spontaneously erupt or anything. So I have to say, I do have a bit of a reputation for things flying around when I do get upset.
Do you really?
Yes.
Like what? Can you give me an example?
Well, I'll give you examples where I have corroboration because somebody was with me when it happened. Because otherwise, I could tell you anything. But my second youngest daughter has Graves' disease, which is hypothyroid disease, autoimmune.
Right.
And the medication she needed to suppress the uptake of the thyroid hormone was they didn't have it. It was one of those medical shortages type thing. And this is very stressful because she was very, I think her thyroid hormone was 3.5 times normal, which causes quite severe symptoms. And so then we found out, we went to the chemist to renew the script for this medication, carbimazole, it was, and nobody had it. And I was getting very, very stressed because this is very important. We were phoning chemists everywhere, up even in Sydney, which is over an hour's drive from here, just to be able to get her some medication. She was getting stressed. I was very stressed, and we were in the supermarket, and I just had a bit of a dummy spit. Not proud, but I just was like, I can't believe that this can happen. Something so important. There's no generic for this medication. So this is it. And then it's like, oh, sorry, and I was getting really, really upset. And my partner was with me. We were walking down the supermarket aisle and we got to the aisle where they have all the kitchen equipment, rolling pins, that sort of stuff. Well, we're pushing the trolley, walking, and I'm getting and I was very, I have to say, I was more frantically stressed than I was cranky, but I was really stressed out because we only had a couple of days' supply of this pill left, and I was berating myself. I should have got this filled sooner, blah, 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 the prescription. Anyway, we were walking along, and this Frypan that was hanging on, they have the hooks, like a circle on the end of the Frypan?
Yeah.
It's on the hook, and those hooks come down and they go up so that they can't fall off.
Right.
Well, my partner saw this, I saw it too. The Frypan lifted up, came off the hook and flew across the supermarket aisle, right across it, not just like landing on the, at the bottom of where the hook was. It flew across the aisle and smacked down on the ground and made this really, really loud noise.
Wow.
And my partner looked at me and said, I think you should calm down now.
So your partner associated it directly with you immediately.
Yes. Because that kind of thing does happen. I can't off the top of my head, but things do tend to go flying or explode.
Wow.
So yeah, but that was a really good one. Because just the whole motion of the Frypan, it was thrown. It wasn't just like, it fell off the hook and boom, boom, it's on the ground. You could see it fly across the aisle. And supermarket aisles, they're quite wide, at least wide enough, for 3 trolley spans or whatever, I don't know. But yeah.
Well, what was your reaction? Were you startled or?
No, not really. Not after all these years. I was just like, okay, yep, I need to stop getting so upset now. Something's telling me.
Wow.
So yeah. So that
you just got to talk yourself down and tell people, don't piss me off. You won't like me when I'm angry.
Well, it's funny because, I'll hit you on the head with Frypan, but and I don't do it. Perfect crime, hey. But it kind of was. It made me think of all the times we had when we lived in the house that we were in last. We had a lot of problems with light bulbs exploding, and I don't know why that used to happen because the house we have here and before. We had the safety switch circuit breakers put in. Do you know those? Because we've got like 240 volt power here.
Yeah.
So if there's any leakage, you don't want that coming down your arm. So we have the safety switch. So as soon as there's a leakage of anything, it switches all the power off.
Okay.
And stuff like that. But we used to have these inexplicable things happen, like, electric Frypan would just explode. And I'm thinking, no, this isn't right. It shouldn't do this. But I know that the safety switch did work.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why, but we used to have the light bulbs explode a lot.
Now, was this something that you had checked out by an electrician?
Well, I didn't ever have that checked out by an electrician, but I do know that the safety switch that was put in by an electrician and was connected to everything. And he even showed us, because he put the safety switch in, and then they have those little, here I'm getting very technical, stick type things that they can touch to metal.
Yeah, the meter.
And yeah, like
he
could touch it on the sink. He touched it on our stainless steel sink to show us that actually all the circuit, it was, as soon as something was live, that was it, the power was gone. And it goes off faster than a heartbeat, so you can't get electrocuted.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I know that but we still had all these problems. I keep saying, well, that shouldn't be happening. But I'd go and check, and, everything was right. So, but yeah, that was a bit of a strange house, that house.
Was that just happening randomly, or was it also happening when you were getting, like, agitated?
Well, it made me wonder, because I did have, because my kids are all very close together in age, so they're all at puberty at the same time. So, and, teenage boys, and they can get a bit, emotional, I think. Yeah, so, but it was just strange. So I've never had that happen in a house since. The way that those bulbs, I mean, they would just smash. They wouldn't just go out. They would explode. There'd be glass everywhere.
Wow.
That was the house that we lived in that definitely had some sort of presence in that house.
Yeah.
I used to think it felt like an old lady. And that was what my partner did actually see, with the apparition that they saw, was like an old lady, she said, which, was a bit weird, because that's what I'd always thought. I didn't say anything, though, because I didn't want to, frighten the kids. I didn't know that they were already frightened. They didn't say anything to me. Yeah. Isn't it surprising? It's amazing how these things you just don't say,
Yeah.
But, yeah, and that was actually funny, because when I was talking to my son about, a lot of the weird things that had happened, and my partner actually had been in the garage, which was downstairs. It was a 2-story house, and it was downstairs under the house. And my partner was doing something, and they heard the light switch go off, and then darkness, so they were left in the dark, which was quite frightening. And then my son said, that happened to me as well. Exactly the same. I heard the switch go off, and then I was stuck in the dark.
Wow.
So, yeah, that house was a bit funny, I think. But, and that reminded me, actually, when we were looking for houses before we moved here, the first thing I'd do is you'd walk in the house, and there was always like an atmosphere. Mm-hmm. You know how that is?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and most of them were okay, and there were 2 houses that seemed to me to be like totally neutral, if that can. Do you know what I mean? Like, there just didn't seem to be anything. And then we looked at this other house, and it's a few blocks away from where we live now, on the other side of a busy road. And honestly, I walked in, and it felt like the roof was only half an inch off my head. It was so oppressive. Mm-hmm. And it had a pool in the backyard, and I didn't want to spend even 5 seconds in that house. And that's one of the most clearest atmospheres that I've ever felt in my entire life. It was, I don't know if you can actually say, it felt very oppressive, and it felt like domestic violence or something like that. It just felt like a very violent, brooding, oppressive house. And I know the real estate agent was trying to get me to go out and look at this pool, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I just wait outside, thank you.
Did you tell him why?
No, I didn't tell him why. I should have. probably should have, like, this is the worst atmosphered house I've ever been in, and there's not enough money in the world. You couldn't give me enough money to buy this house.
Yeah.
It's funny because the people, obviously it sold, and I was really surprised because we go past that house often on the way to the shopping centre, and I was really surprised that it actually sold. I thought, oh, maybe those people are like the psychic bricks. Mm-hmm. They can't feel anything. But funnily enough, it got torn down, and they built another. Yeah, they built another house on there, and I always think, I wonder if it was the house or whether it's still there, just in a new house.
Yeah. Huh.
Because sometimes it can actually be. Yeah, I don't know, but that was just another weird thing. But yes.
Yeah, I think there's something funny. Like I have gone on 2 occasions and asked people about whether or not a place either had reported hauntings or, strange happenings, or if there'd been a death in there. And I tell you what, it is the most uncomfortable feeling to have to bring that up. And,
yeah.
The last place I lived before my current residence, we just had a ton of stuff happening there. And I actually, after several things, like it was a few days in a row that we had things happen. Normally it's like once every couple of weeks you'll see something or hear something, but this was like 3 or 4 days in a row. We had both my wife and I experience things. And finally I got up. I was like, you know what, I'm going to walk to the leasing office here. And I walked up there and, all motivated to get answers. And as soon as, I was in front of somebody, it's like, I didn't know how to bring it up, Like, what do I say that's going to make me sound like not crazy? So
exactly.
I said, have you ever had any strange reports of anything happening in any of these units, or specifically the one I live in? It's this probably girl maybe in her early 20s, and she goes, no. And she's kind of looking at me. And I said, okay. And I start walking away, and she goes, why? The curiosity got the better of her. And I said, well, here's what I'm experiencing. I don't know if you believe in ghosts or if, what your take on it is, but this is what just happened the last few days. And she was like mortified. She's like, oh my God. And she's like, do you want me to send maintenance over? And I was like, no, this isn't something maintenance is going to be able to handle.
Yeah, I know. What sort of maintenance? They come over with their, religious stalls.
Their proton packs.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
I know. I think that's how it is for me too, because there's just something, it must be a societal taboo that we just haven't gotten over yet. And I can even feel it myself. I mean, I know I've been guilty of when people have said, oh, and this happened, and you think, okay, did you dream it? So even I do it. I suppose that's part of being, a enlightened, reasoned, there has to be an analysis of this, but often it just defies that kind of analysis, doesn't it? When you're, and like when I was saying to you in the email, when I just kind of thought, okay, I'll do this by house, just weird and funny things that have happened that I couldn't explain by houses I've lived in. And, I was thinking this does go back a long way because, when we used to spend a lot of time at my grandmother's house. That's my mother's mother, who is here in Australia. And even her house, I know that poor woman used to always be saying, I hear footsteps, and the side, she had a side, they called it the side passage, this narrow little, and that's where my grandfather would always come home from work. He would come down the side passage and come in the back door rather than the front door. And she'd say, I hear that gate go, and, she'd say all these things. And as a kid, I think all of us in the family, at least I know my cousin and my sister and myself, because we were often there at school holidays and that, we would hear these things too. I don't think it really frightened us because it was kind of just Nan had talked about this and that was the house, but I would hear the side gate latch go and you'd hear footsteps. And I would say, oh, my grandfather must be home for lunch or whatever, and run out there, and nobody ever came around the corner. And I know that had happened to all of us girls, the kids that, when we were there. One of the, I remember, because my dad was terribly, terribly sceptical of any of this. And one time my nan had a neighbour over from across the road. They used to have afternoon tea and have a bit of a natter,
Mm-hmm.
And they both heard this terrific knocking on her front door, and her guest said, "Oh, well, I'll be going then because you've got visitors. Somebody's at the door." Well, they get up and go to the door, and there's nobody there. And my nan had this happen to her many times because she was a housewife, so she was home. It always seemed to happen to her, and she was so happy that somebody else had actually experienced the same thing. I mean, it was the street we lived in was a dead end, and her house was set back a bit from the road, so there was no way that anybody could have done that, gone and gotten out of sight before they got there. That she was ever so happy that that the neighbour had actually heard this too, and she said that the neighbour had thought it was a bit strange.
Yeah.
And then there was this classic time that my father had offered to paint the inside of her house. So he was there one night, and he used to do that. He'd come home and then he'd go and do a bit of painting, get it done for the evening, and then he'd come home. And one evening he went out and he was, at Nan's painting, and he came home really early. And my mum said, "Oh, you're home early?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, something a bit strange happened over there." And he said he was painting, and he didn't have anything, any electricals on or anything, because my grandmother, they'd gone out to the club. They often did that, so he would paint in the evening when they weren't there. And he said he heard one of the doors to the bedrooms open because they were on carpet. They make that noise, doors on carpet. And he heard the door open and close. And then he said, and then the house went really, really strange. The atmosphere went really quiet and everything went really strange. And he said he put on the radio to make some noise, and had never painted so fast in his life, and got out. And he really didn't mock her as much after that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, funny. But, it's just strange. Like I said, all these things that have happened. Then we had, where we lived with the whole, whatever that was after the Ouija board session. And at one stage we lived in the house next door to my grandmother's, which it was owned, that the families had lived there a long time. All these houses were built, a fair while ago. And so they were next door neighbours. They were kind of knew each other and were friends. Well, that elderly couple died, and her daughter inherited the house, the couple's daughter. So they offered it to us to rent, mates rates. So, my mum and dad were, right. They moved right in there. And it was next door to and my nan was getting old. So it was good to be next door to her because she did have a lot of falls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But even that house was weird too. And this is where you get to that point where you think, is it houses? Is it just us? Is it something about us and that and triggering stuff in houses? All these. What is the? I have no idea what it is, but all these weird things seem to happen wherever we went. But I remember I used to hear the furniture being dragged around on the front porch, which was strange because it was about, it was always nighttime, 3 a.m. at night, and that it would wake me up. And I was too scared to go out there and have a look and see what it was, but there was no lights on or anything. And I just to think, oh, well, maybe, it's a bit stuffy and somebody's just gone out there to sit or something like that. But I know that's not what it was. But the scariest thing that happened didn't actually happen to me. It happened to my sister, and she slept in a room that was like in a bit of an addition to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this, yeah, she said this is what she told me. She was sleeping, and she felt a presence behind her, and she said she swore something touched her on the neck. And, of course, that made her roll over, real sudden to see what this was. And she said she saw this black thing that was kind of cowled, like it had a cowl on a hood or something. And she said it frightened the life out of her. And I can believe her because, at this stage I was working, so I was older than 15 years old. Mm-hmm. That's when I left school. And my sister slept in my bed with me for about 2 weeks because she was too scared to go back into her room.
How old was she at the time?
To her. Oh, gosh. She would have been, 13, 14 at the very least when this happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did she say it was like transparent, or was it like a solid figure?
I think it was solid. I think from what she said, she couldn't see anything through it, and it was very dark. I think that's what scared her the most, is that it had like a hood on. Yeah. I mean, this was ages before, shadow man kind of things and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This would have been in the, mid to late 80s. And but it really frightened her. And I had no reason to. And she used to say to me, I keep hearing the door open, the back door open. But the way it was impossible, the way it was all happening. Like we had a screen door, because here in Australia, just about everybody has a fly screen door. It's very hot. You leave your door open, but you have the fly screen kind of door.
I wish we had those here.
Everyone has them here. I know when I go to America that a lot of people have the glass ones, glass doors. I think that's really strange.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that.
It's like, what's the point?
I know. But we have them off to let the air through the house, because our houses are, they're built for summer, put it that way, not winter. So the way she'd hear it all happen would not make sense. And I know she had told me that. It was something I've just remembered, actually. And it seemed to, then she saw this thing that really, really frightened her. And I mean, I believed her because, seriously, I could not get her to go back to her room. She was just please, just a few more nights. I just can't go back in there. Eventually she did, and she never saw it again. But, she obviously was pretty frightened to squeeze into my bed.
I bet.
Me. It really did frighten her.
Let me interrupt you a sec. I gotta say, I really like that you kind of still maintain the skeptical approach to things. I can think of a couple examples. One of them just happened to me last night where, like, I think you get so used to talking about this stuff and thinking about it that you risk becoming, like the type of person who thinks everything's paranormal.
Yeah.
We haven't had much happen in our current house. There's been one or two incidents, but nothing huge. And we've been here over 3 years now. And but last night we were sitting there getting ready to go to bed, my wife and I, and we heard this really loud bang in the kitchen. And we just kind of looked at one another. I'm like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
And we get up and go investigate, kind of look around. And I opened the freezer, and I had forgotten I actually put a can of soda in the freezer like 4 hours ago, and I'd meant to take it out after maybe 45 minutes, and it exploded. And then there was another incident where this was several years ago, back when I used to go out with my buddies. We were at a bar, and it was just about closing, and I was sitting there talking to the bartender. They had filled up my my pint glass maybe 20 minutes before, and I was just done. I didn't want to drink anymore, but it was still sitting there in front of me. And we're getting ready to leave, and I remember thinking, I'm just gonna have one more sip. So I reach for the the glass, and as I'm reaching for it, it slides from like away from my right hand, and it goes right to left, over to the next seat over, and stops. And like 4 people witnessed this, right? Everybody's going, oh, and of course we're all buzzed and, not thinking straight. But we sat there and we're like, let me put it there again. And sure enough, we sat there maybe 2 or 3 minutes and it did it again. And I think it was just the condensation building up on it with a non-level surface, But it was repeatable, So but then there's so many things that happen that aren't and they can't be explained, like you said.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I always say it's really funny because I am really quite skeptical of. I'm like, well, this could have done it, and I do that to myself as well. I do think, well, maybe the Frypan. Like when I'm talking about the incident with the Frypan which flew across the aisle of the supermarket. Well, the first thing we did was we wheeled straight there. We were actually alone in the aisle at the time when this happened. We wheeled straight there, and I thought, well, it's just come off the shelf. Off the hook. It's just, there's too many on there or something like that, and vibration. But we looked in that there was plenty of room on the hook. See, so I always try and look at things and think, could it be this? Could it be that? And I said this to, my partner, well, maybe it just kind of was on the edge and we come along with the trolley, though we were a fair way away from it when it did it, but, you never know. And my partner's like, yeah, but didn't you see it fly across the, so that part I couldn't quite explain away because I do think that it would have just fallen down, bang, and spun around or something, but it actually did come up and fly across the... So, wow. Even when I see that, I do try and think, well, maybe a truck drove by and, the vibrations. But
it's healthy, though. It's healthy to try to think of that immediately. But
yeah. Well. But I don't know. Yeah. So, yeah. But I did have the other few things written down if you wanted me to just chat
absolutely.
about that. There was another thing that did happen at the last house that we lived at, and this involved my ex husband actually, and he'd come home from work and he was laying on the ground. I don't think I've talked about this one. I hope not. He was laying on the ground as he used to do, and I looked at him, and it seemed like he had come over his face this mask, and it looked like, how bruises go purple and red, and it looked like that. It looked like this really grotesque purpley red thing that was superimposed over his face, and I thought, oh, what's that? And I remember consciously closing my eyes, blinking, rubbing my eyes, and I opened them up and it was still there. And I thought, oh, I must be actually seeing this because it's not just my eyeballs, Right. And then it gradually kind of faded off. And I thought, oh, and this is where I get so cranky with myself sometimes, because instead of saying, oh, wow, I just saw this really crazy thing, I didn't say anything. I thought that was really, really weird. It was kind of weird in a very unsettling way, and I don't want to talk about this kind of thing. Well, anyway, the next, this would have been, I don't know, 9 o'clock or something at night. At about 4 a.m., he woke up in massive pain, and he had a kidney stone and had to get carted off to hospital and all that. And I do look back and think, I wonder if that's what that was. I wonder if that was some, I don't know.
That's so odd.
Precognition kind of thing or something.
Yeah. He didn't have any sort of indication that his face was changing, or no symptoms at the time?
No, he did. It wasn't his face that changed, though. It was like superimposed over the top of his face.
Yeah.
So it was over him, like oh, look, I don't know. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, it was just over the top of his face, like some sort of mask kind of thing that just was on his face. And it was really weird. But, yeah.
That's so odd. I mean, in my line of work, I've seen a lot of people with kidney stones come in to the hospital, and if anything, they're in so much pain they almost get like a sheet white appearance, or they'll turn green and nauseated sometimes.
Yes, because when he woke up, he was pale as anything and a cold sweat.
Right.
A cold sweat, pale, and shaky, and oh my gosh, I've got to go to the hospital. I mean, there's something really wrong with me. I'm in so much pain.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Maybe I'm just connecting two events. I don't know. But that was really weird. And it's one of those times, like I say, that my skeptical mode even though I'd blink my eyes and rub my eyes and still saw it after I'd done that, my inner skeptic still clicked in to say, well, that could have been anything.
Mm-hmm.
Best just to not go there, So I didn't say anything at the time. I wish I had now. Not that, the kidney stone thing wasn't a good thing, but
yeah.
I wish I had, not kept quiet. It was just unsettling, the colour of it. It was, yeah.
Well, it's so weird. Like, let's say, let's take that road for a sec. If that was some kind of premonition type of thing, like, like, what are you supposed to do with that? Like,
I know.
Your face is turning red. To me, that's okay. If it's a premonition, maybe they're going to have a cranial aneurysm, or, that you wouldn't think kidney stone. It's kind of a weird.
No,
weird sign.
I wouldn't have thought that either. It was more like, I don't know, like lividity. Is that what they call it when the blood all flows to one place? But like I said, it wasn't actually on his skin. It was like covering like a membrane, like thing. But yeah, and then when I was talking to my son, and I said to him, because he told me about the light switch thing, which he not really talked that much about before, how he was in the garage and the light switch got turned off on him. I think it scared him a bit. But then we found out that it happened to other people, so he added his story. But he also saw and I don't, look, this is just all weird, so there's nothing to do to preface this except to just get it out there and say what he saw. Mm-hmm. He was looking out the window. We had this big north-facing window. Mm-hmm. Here, that's really good because, because we're in the southern hemisphere, north is actually sunlight for us. Mm-hmm. So the north side gets the sunlight, the south side is in the shade.
Okay.
So we had this big north-facing window, so it had good vision and, it was very light. And he said he was only a kid. I could probably ask him how old he was when he saw this. He wasn't really, I don't think he was a teenager yet, but he was, yeah. And he was looking out the window and he said he saw this little triangular craft type thing over the forest that was, you could see from our house. We have a big, what you call a nature reserve. Mm-hmm. And he saw this little triangular craft that behaved in this really weird flying pattern, like going straight up in the air, shooting straight up in the air, and then going straight sideways and coming down. And he said he remembered seeing that and at the time thinking it was moving in this really funny way. And then he thought, oh, maybe it's a kite, though. I said to him, what would you be doing flying a kite in a nature reserve full of trees, eucalyptus trees, like massive eucalyptus? Doesn't really make much sense. But that's what you do, don't you? You rationalise things. How old were you when you saw that?
Oh, probably about 8, but you're right, no one's going to fly a kite around.
He says he was about 8 when he saw it. And he thought it was a kite or something. But he said then it kind of did this really strange manoeuvre and just zoomed straight off out of sight, like to the side, like zoom, gone. Mm-hmm. And he sort of just kept that to himself too. And it was only when I saw something strange that he said, I saw something strange too. What I saw was totally different to that. And like I said, I'm just going to say it. I know it sounds really weird, but I'm saying it.
Hey, that's why we're here.
Oh, yeah. I got up. It was a Wednesday. I can remember it was a Wednesday. It was early in the morning, and I had curtains across the big windows we had. We had these big, huge westerly-facing windows. And I kind of got up and went, open the curtains, from the middle.
Yeah.
And I saw this really weird, only way I can describe it is like a ball, an orby kind of ball. I hate to say the word orb, but it was big, It's hard to say when you're looking out at something when it's, even a certain distance away to say how big these things are, It came around the side of the house across the street. We lived in a cul-de-sac, so they were at the top of the cul-de-sac and we were to the side of it. It came around my neighbour's house. It came in front of my neighbour's house, and then we were around the other side and then floated off and disappeared. And
That's
I thought
so
at the
weird.
time, that is one of the strangest things I've ever seen. And, look, it was kind of this, I know this is going to sound strange, it was kind of like a soap bubble. It looked like kind of like a huge soap bubble, but it was kind of like an pastel apricot-y pink colour. And that's just the weirdest thing, isn't it? I feel silly saying this, but It was one of those things where I thought, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. I don't know what that is.
Would you say it was like basketball size or larger?
Probably larger.
Huh.
I'm trying to think how big it was. Probably, maybe half a metre, 50 centimetres or so in diameter across.
I'm sitting here having to think how big that is because, us
Americans.
Americans. Yeah. But I got it, though. I think I got it in my head. But what about noises? Like how was it quiet or?
No, it was. I did have the window shut, but it seemed to just totally be quiet and just float around the corner, around the front of the house, floated to the other side of the house, and then disappeared off in the same direction as that forest.
Now, did it float like a bubble, like maybe the wind was pushing it?
It did float like a bubble, but it floated like a bubble that had emissions.
Huh.
It didn't float with the air currents. It came in a straight circular kind of line around the house, straight up. And I did actually mention it to the lady that owned that house, that I had seen this funny thing around her house, and she was just like, oh okay.
She's like, whatever, lady.
Yeah, crazy lady across the street.
Well, it's funny that your son at the age of 8 already had it ingrained in him not to say anything.
Yeah, he just thought it was really strange. Like you said, he put it down to being a kite, a black triangular kite.
Yeah.
That somebody was flying in a forest.
Yeah.
Which, it's like, and you know how tall eucalyptus trees can get. I mean, these are massive eucalypts. It's a forest full of eucalypts. There's an access path for the electrical wires that joins one suburb to another. So they have this massive path through. But apart from that, it is just chock full of eucalyptus trees, virtually, I don't know why you'd be flying a kite in there. But it was the only thing that he, at that age, could put it down to. But, we were talking about, you did say, it was a bit strange. So, which it was funny because I remember, I don't know if I told you this one night I used to have some really strange dreams when we lived in that house. And this was probably about the same time, actually, because my son was only small. And I remember that I'd had this really strange dream that, and I'm just gonna again say it. I have this big shield that is like, you shouldn't say anything. You shouldn't say this because people are going to hear you're crazy. But I had this crazy dream, right, that something was wrong. And I dreamed that I got up and I went into my son's room. They used to share a room when they were small. And I went in there and I was really cranky. And there was something in there and I wouldn't look at it. And I didn't know, I wouldn't look at it. Somehow to look at it would mean, I don't know, I wouldn't be able to keep control or something like that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't look at it. And I remember saying to it, you know, we have a deal. And the deal is that you don't touch my children. You don't go near my children. Mm-hmm. And I was talking to it, but I wasn't talking through my mouth. It was like mentally. Mm-hmm. And it was basically saying, we do whatever we want. Oh, and I was so mad. I was so cranky. And I just remember having that really weird dream. And for some reason, when my son was telling me about the little triangle moving around, I'm thinking, I wonder if they're connected or something. I have no idea. I'm just pulling that out of nowhere. But that was I had quite a few funny, crazy dreams like that when we lived there. You
gotta wonder if it's all connected somehow.
Yeah, then I was thinking that when we first moved into this house, we have where we lived was we did have the forest there, but we were a few streets down from that. It was quite, suburban. Here it still is suburban, but we've got a big oval, a playing field where they play cricket and do athletics and stuff like that. So we call them ovals, big green patch for that sort of stuff, for sport. And when we moved in here, I remember this was a funny dream because I always remember the really strange kind of dreams. You have those dreams that you forget them. You wake up and they're gone within a few moments of being awake. But the strange ones I remember. And I had this dream, and in the dream somebody was standing next to the bed, and they were saying to me, again, like telepathy kind of thing, oh, thank you for moving into a house with a big, vacant green spot in the back. That makes it so much easier for us. That frightened me.
To do what?
I don't know. That was it. It was just one of those really weird dreams.
That's creepy.
It is. But I try not to think about that. But I have had, and like I emailed you, I had a dream once. Well, I think that I put this more. At the time, I hadn't heard about anything like this. I just thought it was a really touching dream that I'd had about my grandfather. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just say it. I dreamed I was asleep, and I woke up and I walked out into the hallway where all our bedrooms were, and it opened up into our dining room and lounge room area, the open plan part of the house. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather was standing there, and my grandfather had been dead a long time, probably 15 years before I had this dream. Mm-hmm. And he was dressed exactly how he used to dress, with his flannelette shirt with the, checks. Mm-hmm. And he had the trousers like he used to wear, and slippers. He used to wear slippers all the time. He had a stroke a while before he died. He dressed, just very casually. And he looked exactly the same, except he looked kind of like somebody who was pretending to be old. Mm-hmm. He didn't look, And I said, we always called, I know this goes out strange, we always called my grandfather Fred. We always called him Fred. That's what we called him. And I just said, oh, wow, Fred, it's so good to see you. And he said back to me, I can remember this dream word for word. He said back to me, I look like this so you'd know it's me, because you only knew me as an old man. You didn't know me when I was young. So this is how I look, so you know it's me. And I said, okay. And he said, I have something I want to show you if you want to come with me. And I said, okay. So he kind of reached out for me. And then we were in this field, like just lots of long grass. And I said to him, oh, I bet you could tell me what the names of all of these different grasses and all these plants are. And he started like pointing to stuff and naming it and stuff. And I interrupted him, and I said to him, well, don't you get bored here?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with eternity or wherever you are? And he looked at me and he said, basically, you don't get bored. When you when you want to, you decide to do something else. So you never get bored, basically.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay. So, and then I kind of had this vision, like if you wanted to go sit on the beach, and you could microscopically examine all the different grains of sand if you wanted to. So what he'd said, the exact words that he said was, whatever you choose to do fulfills you totally until you decide to do something else.
Wow.
So I thought, okay, well, that's basically what he's saying to me, is that you don't get bored. Whatever you choose to do fulfills you totally until you decide to do something else. And then he said, then it kind of changed, and he said to me, this is how we think of you here. And he hugged me, and I had, I can't even, it was like being hugged, and I was in the presence of something that was unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds like such a cliche, but that's the only way that I could describe it. I had like this, it was like x-raying my entire being. It was everything. I went, and it was like all of my good points and all of my bad points and all the ways that I hadn't lived up to expectations of myself or whatever. And, I had 4 very small kids, and I remember the first thing I stopped at was, I said, oh, but, I'm so selfish. I'm selfish. I should be better for my kids. And this thing, whatever this hug thing was, said to me, I know, but I love you. And then it went forward again, and I'm thinking, it was all basically a lot of the I suppose at the time, because I had small kids, a lot was oriented around my kids and what sort of mum I was. And I saw, some incidents where I'd lost my temper, and that, tired lots of kids, and I had lost my temper, and I shouldn't have. And I stopped and I said, but look, I've lost my temper. I shouldn't have done that, blah, blah, blah. And this thing said, I know, but I still love you. And it just went on like that. It was just this thing of, I don't know how else to describe it. It was just this, that is, to me, what I got from it was that was some sort of essence or something that we all are a part of, or something like that. It was really, really strange. And then my grandfather said to me, that kind of all faded out once I'd had that. And there were lots of things to it. It was affirming my gender. It was affirming, it was basically saying to me, you are the female part of what I am, but you are here. And this is what you are doing, because this is what you've chosen to do,
Mm-hmm.
And it was very, very emotional. It made me cry really, really hard. And and my grandfather stepped back in and he said to me, it's time to go now. basically you have to go back. Our time's over. And I remember I woke up and I had tears streaming down my face. I was crying so hard. And I woke up and I was saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I was actually talking and saying thank you when I woke up.
Wow.
Because of what it was, the whole experience.
What a great experience.
I know. And it's like I said, I remember every word. I remember every feeling. And this was a long time ago, this dream. It's decades now. And I've never had another dream really that was that intense that I can remember, actually what was said to me and all the feelings and that. And it was only later on that I actually read about, visitations, how people's loved ones can come. And I thought, oh, I wonder if that's what that was, because it just seemed to be such an intensely emotional dream featuring my dead grandfather.
Yeah.
It was, yeah. And it that probably remains one of the most, just most intense dreams that I've ever had, to the point where I do wonder sometimes, was that a dream? And I remember, this is the part, I remember when I was having this hug thing, that whatever that turned into, this X-ray of my whole entire being thing. And I remember saying, you love me, you still love me. Look how bad how I fail so much. And do you know what it said to me? It said, because how you are, your incarnation, as you are at the moment, you can't love unconditionally. Everything that, when you love, everything is dictated by what you get back. Your love will die out if you don't get love back. You always have to have this reciprocal thing going. That's how love is where you are. But and then it kind of, it said, but I'm not like that. That's not how I am. It just loved. That was it. It didn't matter that it didn't get it back. Which, so that was my dream. And I to this day, like I said, I don't know, but the one thing that did come from that dream is whenever I felt scared or want any sort of protection, I always call on that source of unconditional love.
Yeah.
Because I figured that you can't get any higher than that. And like I was saying, then like years later, I did read about some, visitation dreams, and when loved ones come back in people's dreams and stuff. So I did think, maybe that's what that was. Well, it wasn't a dream, just an ordinary dream. It was, something else. I don't know, but it has stuck with me.
It reminds me of a lot of the near-death experience types of encounters with loved ones that people say they have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard any of those stories?
I have heard, a few. Because I was just dreaming, like I know I was not in any dangerous situation or anything like that. There probably is a few things that, tally up there, like this being and, it was love and everything else. But I don't know. Yeah, I definitely wasn't having a near-death experience when that happened, because I was asleep and I did wake up, like I said, in bed. But I suppose it does. Like my grandfather saying, come with me, and this is how we think of you here. And, I'll never forget that, like hug. It was really weird. So I don't know exactly what that was.
Yeah, I think some dreams can really seem real, and then there's like the lucid dreams, where it's like you almost feel like you're conscious somewhere.
Yeah, Yeah. And it's funny because he hadn't recently died, my grandfather, or anything. It was a long time ago. You know, he died way before I, got married or anything. Yeah. So, but this is a nice lead into the other dreams that I used to have, which involved my grandmother. Honestly, I sound so crazy saying all this, but it's how it is.
You're not crazy. I don't think you're crazy.
When it was in this house, the house we live in now, and it first started, I had a dream of my grandmother, and I was having another dream, funnily enough, and then she kind of barged into my dream. My grandmother she's dead at this stage. She kind of barged into my dream, and she gave me this really piercing look, like, listen up, Missy, this is important, and I had this feeling like there was something was going to happen, and then that was it. And I woke up, and I remember thinking, oh, that was really weird, a dream in a dream. A dream my grandmother came into my dream and stopped all the action and looked at me. And, and then I started to realise that within a few days of dreaming of my grandmother, something would happen, usually something major, and it was usually bad. It was like she was trying to say, you need to be aware something's going to happen. And one of the most major ones, she was in my dream, and I fainted. This not long after I fainted, and I fell and smashed my teeth out in the front.
Oh,
and
geez.
it was bad. I broke my jaw, and it was very bad. That's what happens apparently when you faint in bathrooms that are full of hard surfaces, and your head always seems to hit the ground first. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But, and then after that, I had told my partner, every time I see my nan in my dreams, I'd wake up and say, oh, I saw my grandmother in my dream. And we'd just get real on edge because it usually meant something was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't handle it. It must have happened, at least 4 or 5 times. And it was always something bad that happened. Mm. And I ended up, I sat down and I said, look, Nan, I know you think you're helping me, but you're really not. I don't want to know. It's too hard for me emotionally waiting for the other shoe to drop, to find out what this is. I would rather not know. I'd rather just it happened and I don't know about it beforehand. I don't want to know anymore. Mm-hmm. So please, 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 I'm asking you, don't come to me anymore. And she never did.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her again in my dreams.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
it was just, and the way it would happen was always I'd be dreaming something else, and she would kind of barge her way into my dream and look at me in this certain way. Yeah, so I have no idea whether, is that just a precognition-y type thing? Is it just coincidence? I have no idea, but I did ask her to stop, and thankfully she has honoured my request. She just doesn't warn me anymore because I just don't want to know.
Yeah. That'd be great if every time you had a dream you didn't like, if you could just tell it to stop and it would happen.
Yes. Yes, it would. It would, but no. Because I get the normal dreams that, everybody gets like frustration dreams where you're trying to ring somebody on your phone and the phone won't work, or the classic one where the lights will go out and I can't find the light switch, all those kind of frustration and stress dreams and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But, these were kind of totally different to that. It usually didn't happen when I was having those kinds of dreams, actually. They'd just be, random crazy dreams. I don't know, I'd be on the Starship Enterprise or something, I don't know, and then it'd suddenly be on the deck,
Right.
It was just weird. But yeah, like I said, I just said to her, no, I can't do that anymore. So,
Well,
and
I'm glad
that's
she
it.
listened.
Yes, so am I. Because, like I said, these were usually big events. You know, they weren't just little things. It was car crashes. It was, like I said, me having a major injury to my face. It was, yeah. And so we kind of lived in this suspended thing of thinking, oh God, what's going to happen next? You know, and seriously, it was usually within a few days that it would happen. So we didn't have to wait long, but it was still long enough for me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you've got quite a list of stories. You know, you never cease to amaze. Yeah, I think you're a
just felt
magnet. I think we talked about that before, where some people are like a magnets to these types of things, and I didn't realize you had.
There's still more, you know.
Yeah.
I still have more, but yeah, I know it's getting on now. We've been talking for a while, but yeah, I just it's good to actually talk about them, but I have to stress that as outside of my very immediate family, and I'm talking my partner and my children, I don't talk about this at all.
Yeah.
So for the fear of just coming across as, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you get no judgment from me. I've certainly have my own experiences that make me sound, not well or insane. So I mean, even I don't think, it's hard to, what am I trying to say? I guess it's easy to understand that things are happening to you that you can't explain, and anyone who's had those things happen to them can, they don't need to understand it themselves, but they can appreciate that, hey, this stuff kind of happens, and there really aren't that many people to talk to about it.
No, there's not. And I can't, I am in no way special. I don't have any agenda. Like I said, I'm a very private person. I'm just going back to university and studying and have a very ordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, there's no, I don't know. Like I said, it's good to actually talk about it all. Mm-hmm. But at the back of my mind, I'm always like, this is a lot of stuff, and you're going to appear really freaky to people with all this stuff. I mean, it has happened I'm 49 now, so it's happened over a lot of years.
Yeah. But
it just still keeps on happening in little ways, sometimes big ways. But yeah, I don't know. I am kind of reticent because, like I said, I don't want to come across as some freaky person with all these freaky stories or anything. But I guess, and maybe my theory is that these things that do happen a lot to a lot of people, but they just never tell their stories.
Mm-hmm.
For fear of, like I'm saying, when you actually put it all together, it just sounds too unbelievable.
Right.
But,
Well, you're always welcome to chat with me about them.
Okay.
And, I kind of do the same thing, though, where I might start telling somebody about something. I've gotten a little braver recently. But you can kind of gauge when someone's thinking you're a little off the wall, or if they're into it, that you could just keep talking. But I'd say 1 out of 5 are probably showing any kind of interest in any of the stuff I share. So it's really, it is tough. And then even the ones that are interested, you can't obviously sit there and, tell them everything, but it's validating to know.
I don't know what is psychic, what is sensitive, all these things you hear people say, oh, I'm a little bit sensitive or whatever. I don't actually feel anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just all these weird things seem to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to actually, what do you, maybe that's human nature, that we like to pack it into this nice little box and get a permanent marker and write what it is on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we've got some sort of defined space.
Yeah.
that this is. Whether it's, oh, I'm a little bit sensitive or something like that. But honestly, I don't feel that way at all.
Yeah.
Just, it's not like I can walk to every house and say, oh, blah, 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 there's something here or whatever, because I can't. It just seems to just be this weird stuff.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, like I said, I'm here anytime you want to chat about this stuff, and I'm glad I got to catch up with you again. I think, you said you have more, so I think we may have to get you back in a little bit, if you're willing and able, after all this, to continue coming on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, eventually I'll run out of all my stories, but I do, like I said, I try to jot them down, but I'm looking at my list here, and there's still some other stuff that's a bit freaky.
Okay.
Too, because like when I was thinking about the nature of what that entity, what would you call it, that came into our flat after we did the Ouija board thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still a few weird things that I could feel are associated with that entity.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it was. Yeah.
Well, I would highly suggest you try to contact John.
Yeah.
And just see what he has to say about it. You may or may not subscribe to his same line of thought, but I found what he had to say pretty interesting.
Right. Yeah.
But
I will.
Honestly, I don't know what else to refer you to, or who else to refer you to. It's kind of one of those things where there's really no specialist in these types of things. You can go to people who've researched things and have ideas or find patterns and things that are similar, but who knows? I think we're all just kind of guessing.
Yeah. I don't know, because like I said to you, honestly, you're the first person that, even in my family, immediate family, that I've ever really told all these things to.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not the type that just goes I have to say though, after the grandfather thing, I did actually go to speak to a Catholic nun
okay.
about what she thought it was, but she just looked at me like I was strange. So after that I kind of never I thought, no, you just have to keep this to yourself.
Yeah, well, like I said, you're welcome anytime, and I'm glad, happy to be able to share your stories, and we'll just keep them coming. If you do run into anything or anything new happens, please let me know.
Yeah, I will, and hopefully there's somebody out there that can relate and has a story, that's similar or something like that.
Yeah.
Especially with the pulling sensation thing. That when the Ouija board, that I still, to this day I haven't heard of anything like that. But
yeah, that's a unique one. I can definitely, anybody listening to this, eventually when it comes out, feel free to contact me and I can connect you guys. Yeah,
because I still haven't come across anything like that, but I can still, feel it like what it felt like. I can still, in my mind, I can still feel that. But like I said, I don't know if it was, what was it? If it was some sort of electrical thing, was it energy? I don't know. Why out of my back? I have a lot of questions about that. I don't know if I'll ever find out the answers to that.
Yeah, well, we can keep looking for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about time for me to call it a night. And
okay.
I like I said, I did enjoy our conversation. It's always great talking to you because you've got so many great stories, and we'll definitely have to do it again.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and it's like, what, midday for you there, right? So
Yeah, it's 1:43 p.m.
yeah, that's
Saturday
so weird.
afternoon.
So weird. Yeah,
In the future.
Yeah, it is. It's in the future. I mean, it's almost 9 p.m. here, and I should probably spend a little time with my wife before we turn in for the night. Just so I'm not totally neglectful. But, again, thank you so much. And if anybody does reach out and contact me and say they've had a similar experience, I promise to, definitely get you guys connected.
Thank you, Jeremy.
All right. Thanks again. And you have a good rest of your day. And
I will.
I guess I'll chat with you soon.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, take care. Once again, I just want to send a huge thanks to Samantha Lang for chatting with me so openly here. I think some of my favorite episodes have to do with these personal stories from everyday people. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode and that you would consider rating and reviewing. If you haven't heard, iTunes has announced that they are changing some of their marketing terminology relating to podcasts. You can now find the show on Apple Podcasts. I have to say their notifications regarding this change have been somewhat confusing. I'm still listening to all my feeds through the same app that I have been, so I don't think it'll influence how you find your favorite shows. In any case, Deviatus is also on a wide variety of other podcatchers out there and on YouTube. If you like a specific podcatcher and you don't see the show there, shoot me a message and I can see about submitting the show. As always, you can find the show notes at deviatus.com, and I'm on Instagram and Twitter at deviatuspod, as well as my Facebook fan page. Thanks again to everyone who's been commenting, rating, reviewing, and submitting guest suggestions. Until next time, have a great week.